Thanks for joining us today. I'm Brian Windsor. I'm a certified financial planner with Bogart Wealth.
And I'm Morgan Veth. I'm also a certified financial planner here at Bogart. And today we're going to have a quick chat, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and talk about job loss, what happens, things to consider during a tough but crucial time. So, Brian, before we get into the finance part of it, 'cause we're certainly going to talk about that and considerations, let's just talk about it. Like, what would you say to someone, they've just found out, like going through it? Like, what's your advice just initially?
Yeah, initially is to just allow the moment to sink in. You're with a company, especially for a lot of people that have been with a company for so long, and they've had so many different life events with their companies. It's a very difficult transition to all of a sudden not have that stability, that routine, just the things that you're used to. And so the first thing that I always would recommend is just taking time to process it, and just allowing yourself to emotionally understand that this is happening. Because if we're avoiding it, it's just delaying the inevitable of some of those financial decisions that eventually have to be made. And so when we're thinking about, okay, now that I've accepted it and it is time to move on, okay, let's talk about it. What do we think is one of those first or several things that we need to consider from a financial aspect that we need to be considering?
Yeah. So, immediately I think about your budget. Hopefully you've already got a budget in place. Some don't, not great time to start one. But kind of revisiting and having almost like, I think we think of it like a temporary budget, but really it's kind of assessing what you're spending in terms of, is there anything that is discretionary and you could cut out during this period of time? Maybe you've paid for like food service or delivery because you've been working, but now you can cut back and do your own cooking and food shopping. Just really thinking about ways to kind of rein in the budget. In the interim, I think is a great thing to do.
Yep. Agreed. It's that difference between what's essential versus what's discretionary. Maybe we pull back a little bit on certain places just because, hey, we have bills that have to be paid. There's no negotiations here. And that's what we have to focus on. Yeah. And then from now that we have an understanding of what expenses are going to be, then the really question is how we're going to be looking to fund those and what types of benefits that we may be having or entitled to as we are leaving a company that maybe we spent a very long time with. So obviously some of the bigger, heavier questions are things like healthcare, right? So what are some of the top things that you would recommend for somebody that's looking at, okay, now that I'm no longer with this company, what are my healthcare options?
Absolutely. An important insurance and coverage to have. Yeah. Based on the size of your company, you can usually continue your coverage that you've had through COBRA for a period of time. I find what shocks people the most is what that cost is and that premium, because you've been experiencing or had the benefit of a group rate, if you will, while you've been working. And so even though it might be the same coverage and the same plan that you're allowed to continue through COBRA, that does not mean your premium is the same. Yeah. So I think that's just part of kind of evaluating all of the benefits, right? If you had an exit package or severance or equity compensation, those are all really important to evaluate in conjunction with your budget.
Yeah, no, totally, because that can play a big part of how are you going to actually pay the bills, because, specifically with, individuals that may have equity compensation plans, they may be having access to some of these assets a lot quicker than they thought. Deferred compensation plans, all of a sudden now are going to start triggering. So it's really important to understand what are those pieces that are going to be coming to you, along with, generally looking and filing for things like unemployment. So we are getting an understanding, okay, expenses, what are the benefits that we're going to have available to pay the bills. It's also really important that's when you're leaning on your emergency fund. So that's the time, right? Yep. This is when you are having the emergencies. This is the rainy day. So, I certainly think that when we're assessing, how to pay the bills outside of the company benefits, it should be coming from those emergency funds. Absolutely. Do you find or feel that the retirement accounts or making, quick decisions on like your workplace plans are really important during this time, or how do you negotiate that with clients?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I would say don't want to make a knee-jerk, decision about. If you don't have an emergency fund, then you might have to tap into some of that. But it's also important just to look at, if you've got a 401k and let's say you had a loan on it, if you've taken a loan against it, typically you can continue to pay for that after you're no longer an active employee. Not always, but it's good to call the 401k provider.
Oh, yeah.
What are my options with this loan? So you certainly don't want to do anything quick, like roll it over to an IRA. I think it's probably kind of where you're headed with that.
I think it's that. I think it's, not, sometimes people feel like, okay, I'm no longer with this company. Now I have to do something and take some sort of action and roll it over immediately. No, there's no one that's telling you, for the most part. There are some few exceptions, but generally speaking, if you have more than like $5,000 in your workplace plan, there's no auto rollover option. So that money can stay there as long as the 401k still exists. I don't believe in any jerk reactions towards that. But in addition to that, it's the retirement strategy that goes along with that. I think the hope is when clients are chatting with us and they're going through their cash flow sources and they're thinking about, do I need to tap into these assets? And the hope is no, right? Hopefully there's those emergency funds that are available. But that's where we come in too, right? Is then seeing where they see themselves from a longer term perspective. Are they still going to be able to meet the needs of their long-term retirement plan with this temporary stopgap in income? What is the best way for you, Morgan, to be able to provide that type of confidence to clients, to let them know that, hey, this might just be a temporary thing, and this is not going to be, really changing a lot for you in your long-term plans.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of the panic, right? Is like, I don't have a job, and is it like derailing all of these goals and things I've been saving for? And so it's something really easy for current clients who come to me with this situation to say, hey, there's a lot of assumptions, right? I mean, because we don't know when you're going to have the next job, what the income's going to be. So we are kind of going more conservative on that. But we can also, I like to say, let's assume it's longer than you think. Even if you think it might be 6 months, what if it's a year?
Yeah.
If you've got that emergency fund, because it also means you're not saving, right, and contributing. So let's just take the most conservative approach we can on all fronts in terms of what your next salary will be and just kind of run through the updated plan. And I think that brings a lot of comfort to people, because then you don't feel rushed to just take, okay, here's the next job available. Maybe it's not the good fit, but I'm going to do it just because. I think it allows you to really process and think about, did I want to pivot my career? Like, what do I want, for my next job, for my next employer? Yeah,
because maybe I found a lot of times when that happens, that gives clients not only a lot of confidence that they can think about this transition maybe a little differently than they first thought about. Yeah. They're not rushing to get another job. Because there is, I feel like, a lot of anxiety for people that are, they were mid-career or getting towards the tail end, and they feel like this is a major derailment towards achieving their goals, and they have such a rush to move forward for employment. But that's what's really critical about us, and what I really enjoy about our job is being able to provide that life advice, giving people financial peace of mind to say, hey, here's the fact. Here's the emotion behind it. That's what we do a good job with separating. So really pleased that we're able to have this talk today and chatting a little bit more about, what are some of the things that you do if you are laid off? Any last parting words for us?
No, I would say reach out if you don't work with us or don't have an advisor. I mean, certainly go ahead and establish that relationship. We'd love to help you because to your point, when this comes up, it's much easier for existing clients who've already done some iteration of their plan to just kind of adjust it. So if you need help or want us to look at your situation one-on-one, we'd love to talk with you.